Hi everyone and welcome very much to my YouTube channel Karoline's Knits, where I talk about my knitting project. My name is Karoline and I live in probably what you'd call central Scotland now with my partner Ben. I am originally Danish, but I've lived in Scotland now for almost 7 years. I don't have a Scottish accent at all, so if you think, I'm sorry to disappoint. I've sometimes had people say I sound a bit Scottish, but I've been told I definitely do not. Day to day I work in IT, and at the moment it has just been a tiny bit relentless at my work. So this episode is filmed slightly later than I would usually have liked. So I feel like there's been a bit more time since I last filmed, but I'm just hoping it will make for more good content. Since I've last seen you, there's been a few changes. First one obviously being my fringe and my haircut. My hair feels quite short compared to what I'm used to, but I'm absolutely loving the fringe, though it's still kind of settling. So it might start like splitting, but I'll just ruffle it a little bit to get it into place. I've also turned 26. I turned 26 last week, and it was a lovely birthday in a lot of ways. I couldn't really complain. The weather was amazing. It was sunshine, which obviously I'm looking outside the window right now and it's definitely about to rain. Isn't that common in Scottish summer? But I was working most of the day, so to be honest, I just spent most of it sitting at my working from home desk. At night time, Ben and I went out for sushi, which was really lovely, and my family had bought me some lovely presents that I got to open as well. For knitting today, I have one finished object, which is also what I'm wearing, so let's start with that. I am wearing the office sweater from Knit Flitter on Nina. I test knitted this in a bigger size than what the pattern currently offers, so this pattern is available, so this would be a 2XL basically, so if you're bust size about 115 to 120, this should fit you. There's already, like, the pattern already goes to XL. So yeah, I just asked to test knit it. There isn't that much positive ease in it because, which kind of meant I couldn't do what I sometimes do and just knit a size down. I have obviously shown you this a lot. So for people who's watched quite a lot of my my knitting podcast will probably be tired of hearing of it. But this sweater and I was definitely on a journey together. I knitted most of the top increases 3 times, and yeah, I think I started it early April, and by the time it was finally finished, it was middle of June, which was that's a long time I think for a sweater. However, I did knit this on 3.5mm needles to meet gauge, and I knitted it in Isaya's Alpaca 1 and 2, which I'll link down below. I've shown it in previous podcasts, but you can obviously properly see the colour and sort of the yarn fluff as well. So I knitted it in that, and I found that grew a lot in the wash. If you don't do it already, always wash your gauge swatch, because I find for most of mine they grow at least 1 stitch. I think the Isaya yarn probably grew easily 2 to 3, which meant that if I hadn't gone down a needle size, I would have had a humongous project with my gauge. And yeah, I could imagine that being really upsetting if you wash your knit and then it really grows. When I tried the yarn on, when I tried the sweater on before I'd washed it, I thought it felt a tiny bit itchy on my skin. As I've mentioned before, I can be quite sensitive, but after I've had it through a wool wash, I don't find it uncomfortable to wear against my naked skin. Every time I talk about it, all yarn always feels more itchy to me, but I have worn this, no problem. It can obviously, as usual, if you're really hot and sweaty, I think most yarns turn itchy, but day to day I haven't noticed it. So yeah, so far so good. I have worn it quite a lot, and especially here in the armpits, you might be able to see there is some pilling. Not loads. And I guess it's also worth saying that the Isaya Alpaca 1 is like 100% alpaca, so I feel like you would kind of expect a tiny bit more pilling, just because it's like a very soft, quite like fluffy fibre. Sometimes people recommend alpaca one as like an alternative to mohair, but also like a fluff-free alternative to mohair. And I don't know if it's the colour. I know Nina said that she didn't find hers as fluffy as what mine looks like. But at least the dark grey I have chosen is very fluffy. I feel like for most people, it's not like mohair fluff necessarily, but it's definitely quite fussy, especially because one of the yarns has long white fibres and long black fibres, which kind of gives that like mild effect to the yarn. So yeah, I have found this dark grey to be such a wearable colour, and that's also why it's been so easy for me to wear. So I feel like I need to knit a few more things in these kind of neutral tones. I have worn it to my physical office as well, because the fit is just really good. I think for work it's a very faff free fit, which sounds ridiculous, but if you love, you know, big balloon sleeves as much as I do, as much as they're great, they can also just be a lot of fabric. And yeah, so yeah, it has obviously nice slim fitting sleeves. On me these are perfect. There's still enough room. I think it's not like up in your armpit, but especially down around the arm it just fits really well. Obviously the shoulder is the real star of this pattern from Nina, where you start with like a type of saddle shoulder, and then you move into 2 different types of raglan. And I think personally that it's such a flattering fit. The sweater sits not tight to me, but it also doesn't sit loose, and I think it makes me look nicer, like it's just a really flattering shape. So I would also say if you have similar body, like a similar body type or size to mine, this is an incredibly flattering pattern. And I think the fit is just so well done. Again, this grew a lot in the wash, so I've knitted, usually when I test knit, I always try to knit everything exactly according to pattern. So I knit the length exactly as described, I knit the sleeves exactly as described, just because I want to make sure that, you know, if the pattern says, oh, you should knit your sleeves to that length, that it would actually fit, or at least fit me, because I have found in other test knits that, for example, the length might be a tiny bit wrong. So yeah, I think this is perfect. I will quickly show you. It has a good length as well, sits like day to day, just sort of like middle of the hip, and again just like quite fitting here on the back. And because of the short rows, you have an absolutely brilliant shape in the neck. I don't find this does that thing where, like, you know, the sweater slides up in your neck. So yeah, all in all, this has been such a successful knit, and one that I have really used a lot. I'm going to move on to whips now. This one I'm just quickly going to show, because I have shown this, I casted on this probably about the same time as the office sweater, so you've seen it loads. But here it is. This is my Fern sweater pattern from Knitting for Olive. So I've finished sleeve number 1, started sleeve number 2, and just, yeah, there's a bit of the body here. So I knitted, the sleeves look really strangely big, but yeah, I'm hoping it's just like, I'm hoping they'll fall nicer once I'm completely done. I didn't gauge swatch for this, and I don't think I'm completely off, but I have a feeling the fit might end up being a tiny bit bigger once I'm done. But I also feel like with this type of pattern, it's not that big a deal. So yeah, I've shown this a million times. I'll link the yarn down below as well. It's knitting, it's the recommended yarn. So it's Knitting for Olive's Merino and Soft Silk Mohair and Claret. And yeah, I feel kind of bad that this is about to go in the won't be work done for a while, because my next 2 whips are both test knits, so they are taking up all my knitting time just now. So I reckon this might not really see much knitting until they're both done, but then I'm kind of hoping I can you know, add another sleeve and then it's just the body, because it is such a lovely pattern. I weaved in, I think I started weaving in ends, maybe I didn't, so I won't talk too much about that. I'm hoping that this will be finished before like autumn properly hits. I think it would be a beautiful like winter sweater, wouldn't it? So yes, that's one of my whips, which essentially got a sleeve while I was waiting for yarn to come in for my 2 test knits. I'm not like, and this is always really interesting to hear what people kind of considers themselves. So I wouldn't consider myself a truly monogamous knitter, but I'm certainly not one who likes too many whips. Like 3 is borderline too many for me. I think the reason I'm not a fully monogamous knitter is for 2 reasons. Firstly, because I like having just round and round and round kind of knitting, you know, completely not thoughtless knitting, but knitting that doesn't require lots of attention. And then I often like a knit that requires me to learn new techniques or to concentrate, so like more of a pattern. I do find that, for example, the Fern sweater, now that kind of lace is, you know, it's a very repetitive pattern. It's really not hard to do. So that's why I like to have 2. First, because of the difficulty and having different difficulties to switch between depending on my mood. But secondly, I also like it because I feel so lost when I finish a project. And it's something I've kind of realized more and more is a thing for me that just after I finish a project, I never really know what I want to do next, and I can feel a bit, what am I going to do? Which sounds absolutely ridiculous because obviously I have plenty of projects planned, but yeah. And I also find that if I have to spend too long gauge swatching and getting all of that right, I just get a bit bored with it and I just miss having something to get stuck into. So the Fern sweater has been quite good as like a time me over project, just for a little while. So yeah, let me know what kind of knitter you are. Am I completely crazy? Like I think in general, the amount of time it took me to finish the Fern sweater and the office sweater, it's not my usual style, because I like to knit quite focused, but this just needed time in the pile of shame till I was ready to face unraveling it 2 times. For my other whips, I was saying I'm obviously doing 2 test knits just now, which is again probably a tiny bit too much, but I do have a problem and always sign up to too much. So one of my test knits is for Sandeman. Stine from the Sandeman is a Danish brand, or Sandeman is a Danish brand owned by Stine. And what she does is that she gets Danish wool that otherwise often just gets burnt, and then she gets it all spun up into nice yarns and sells it, to make sure that we're not wasting what is obviously a lovely resource. So she has a background, like a professional background. Her degree is in some type of knitwear design, but she's always been someone who knits on like a knitting machine. So like she's trying to get into hand knitting as well. So this is her first hand knitted pattern. As you can tell, I haven't managed that much yet. I will insert some photos of what this sweater is going to look like when it's all done. So far I have just finished the body ribbing and I've started the bottom of the body because it's knitted bottom up. For once, very strange to do that type of technique. I've only knitted bottom up once. I am not knitting it in Stine's own yarn because I didn't have the time to get it through. So I should mention that people always show, you know, the beautiful like project bags. This is mine. So this tote bag is from Aspinall of London. I got this as a graduation present when I finished uni. I picked it myself and made my parents pay for it. So basically I couldn't resist it. It's like this beautiful dark burgundy and it has like a blue lining. I think something quite similar to this is on sale at Aspinall just now if you need a bag as well. It's just brilliant because it's like, you know, a big bucket essentially, and usually I just have the sort of main project or projects that I'm working on in this with 1 or 2 balls of yarn, extra yarn, and you know, a little bag of like the haberdashery that I can't be without, and then I carry it with me. I find it's really great for easily taking it up into my office when I'm working, taking it back downstairs to watch telly at night in the sofa, and then back up again for some bedtime knitting in bed, or, you know, if we're going to meet anyone, I can just bring this with me, and it means I don't have to like think about packing it, and because it has straps, it's obviously easy to carry. That's what I use this bag for, so we'll get increasingly full. Right, so the yarn that I decided to use, it was a bit hard to figure out. I actually really struggled to replace the original yarn, but I decided that Phil Kalana's Peruvian Highland Wool was a very good choice. This is, I bought this from Simona at Knit with my own money. It's not sponsored. And yeah, I thought this was a good choice because as you'll see from the pattern, it has, yeah, it does have a pattern or structure. It's a type of lace knitting. And so I wanted something that would show that off. So I didn't want something too fussy. Second of all, it's a sweater that requires quite a large quantity of yarn. I think I bought 16 or 17 balls of yarn for my size. So obviously that's a significant chunk of money for a project. So I was also quite keen to pick something that wasn't really expensive. So yes, the cost was a definite factor for me, because I didn't want to spend several £100s. So Phil Kalana's Peruvian Highland Wool is, I think Knit sells it for about £4 a ball, which isn't the cheapest yarn you can buy, but it's also not the most expensive yarn. I remember Balance-Skein sort of talked about being very upfront and honest about the true cost of their, the projects, which is also really important to me. So yeah, to be completely transparent, I also picked the yarn because I think the price is quite good for what you get. I wasn't sure if Peruvian Highland Wool at first would be for me. I have more of it in my stash, but unfortunately I didn't have, because it needed so much yarn, I didn't have the right quantity. And the colour that I had that doesn't have like a designated project or like a designated second strand is not a colour lot that our dye lot that Simona has anymore of. So I was also like, well, I don't really want to risk having to buy 6 balls of another colour and then it's like completely different, because obviously there can be a lot of difference between different dye lots. So anyway, I decided to go for cinnamon, and cinnamon is, I'll hold this up close while I describe it. It is obviously a brown base, but then it has quite a red strand through it, and almost one that has a tiny bit of a green hint to it. So it is one of the ones they call melange, which like the colour marzipan, and there's a few, especially in the sort of neutral family, that's like that. So yeah, that's why I went for this, because I thought it would give that like quite natural look. A lot of Stina's or Sandeman's own yarns are very neutral and undyed, so I kind of wanted to stay true to her work as a designer, and also I thought that a colour like this would still look quite good with a pair of like really nice work trousers or with a pair of jeans. It would still, a neutral colour wouldn't be too dominant at first. After seeing Fufu Knits on Instagram, I was very keen. She knits in she's knit I think more than one project, but at least one in the bubblegum pink colour from in Peruvian Highland Wool from Phil Kalana, and it says bright neon pink, and I just thought it could also be really fun with something that makes such a statement in such a statement colour. But then I also thought there's a lot of work involved in this type of pattern, and compared to something like this that is a timeless staple, I think a sweater like that in a really bright colour wouldn't be particularly wearable, and also wouldn't be as timeless as it would be in a neutral colour. So anyway, that's why I've picked it. The pattern itself is very different than anything I've knit before, so I definitely have to sort of readjust. You're meant to knit it, because it comes from machine knitting, it's obviously knit in pieces and not in a round, and obviously that's usually my preferred to knit in a round. That also means there's a significant chunk of seaming, and I am just not a great seamer. I think to have a really professional finish, I knew that the more I could knit in around, the better. Also because it it is a big piece, and seaming like, you know, the whole body and the arms and all of this together would also really slow down how quickly I could finish it. And finally, because it's knit in stockinette stitch on the body, so I also thought, well, if I have to knit it all in stockinette stitch backwards and forwards and then have to seam it, I'm already a slower purler than I'm you know, just knitting. And then having to seam it, I was like, well, that would just add easily another week onto how long it takes. So I kindly asked Dina if she would mind, because I kind of looked at the pattern, and I don't think I'll be able to do this for the sleeves, because the sleeves, as you'll see from the sort of picture I put up, are obviously massive, and yeah, there's a lot of seaming to do with them, and I've kind of accepted that I can't get out of that seaming at least. However, for the body, it was quite easy to turn it into the round, because obviously you start out by just having body ribbing and then the pattern all the way up until the underarm, and then you would knit backwards and forwards from the front and back. Pick up for the neckline last, and yes, I think that's it, and then you would sew on the sleeve. So I feel like that top part I feel comfortable with, because the main amount of seaming will be up here by the shoulder. I have wondered, and I would love to hear what you think, if you could maybe do Kitchener stitch, just make a fake stitch, but I don't really know if that would work if you have up here by the shoulder. Do let me know if someone else is better at this kind of flat and making things join together. I've done Kitchener stitch once before, not on socks, because I've never knitted a pair of socks, and I didn't actually find it that hard, and I really did like how it looks, so I'm wondering if that would give a nicer finish on the shoulder. And then obviously you have to seam on the sleeves. So yes, I've started by turning it into the round. The good thing is also that by knitting it in the round, not only do I not have to purl as much, but I could also take out 4 stitches, because obviously usually on either side when you seam you need a corner stitch. So I've taken that out, and yeah, that obviously is a lot of stitches by the time you've knitted a whole body that you didn't have to knit. And yeah, you actually have reverse stockinette stitch as the outside on the body, but I am knitting it, basically I will be knitting the inside so that I can just knit instead of purl. So yeah, I will show you more as it progresses. I'm almost done with my first ball of yarn, and as I said, there will be loads more to go. And now on to my next test knit. For full transparency, I received the yarn as a gift for test knitting. So the yarn is gifted, and obviously patterns that you test knit are always gifted, I guess you could say. If they're usually paid for, they are technically a present. The yarn we got sponsored, actually Nina very kindly got sponsorships for some of the testers, some from Lang Yarns, which is the brand that I got sponsored yarn from, and some of the other testers got actually Phil Kalana Peruvian Highland Wool from Phil Kalana, and Camel Water, it's called, it's the, you know, it looks like my hair but isn't, because it has baby alpaca in it. As I have both of those qualities in my stash, I asked if I could try Lang yarns instead, because I like to try yarns that I, you know, don't know. So Lang Yarns kindly sponsored Carpe Diem, which is one of the softest yarns I've ever touched. It is 70% just wool, birchen wool, and 30% alpaca, and it's is it called a cable yarn? Is it called a ply yarn? I don't know. And I picked this beautiful dark green colour. And then we were also very, very lucky to try a new quality from them, which is called Suri Alpaca, which is, I think, just 100% alpaca. So here you go. This is quite thick. I'll show you the ball I've already started. It's like quite a thick yarn. It runs 100 and yeah, so 25 grams runs 100 meters. That's about half of a normal ball of my hair, so thickness wise it's similar to a ball of 2 balls or 2 strands of my hair, I should say. A lot softer though. Like I obviously love Suri alpaca, I've mentioned that before. That's basically my favorite fiber besides maybe cashmere. So for me, the softness factor of this and against skin contact factor is a 10 out of 10, and the same with the Carpe Diem. I think for me these two when completed will be even when my skin is really flared up. At the moment I'm really fortunate that my skin isn't flaring up very much because we've had more sun. I have had more sun, and my skin or my eczema really likes sun actually. It always, in summertime I often have less. The pattern that I'm test knitting, and now that I've spoken about the yarn, oh I should say, I forgot. So Carpe Diem I think is fairly readily available. I think Lovecraft sell it in the UK. We were sponsored by Lang Yarns Nordic, so you can always contact them if you are Denmark based and ask where you can buy it. Carpe Diem so far gets my highest recommendation. It's soft and it's beautiful. The colour range is really, really good. Obviously I picked this really dark green. It runs 90 meters by 50 grams, and it's gauge wise like most of those, kind of similar to obviously Filcolana, Peruvian Highland Wool, those kind of yarns that you could easily hit 14 stitches per 10 centimeters. So yes, that is a lovely yarn. The Suri Alpaca is an, as of yet, unreleased yarn. So it's a yarn that they're bringing out in July, which is even more exciting. Imagine, like, I can't believe I've actually managed to get my fingers in unreleased yarn. Does that mean you made it knitting wise? But I don't know where this will be stocked yet. I know Knit and Living UK stocks Lang Yarns, and she could probably order you in Carpe Diem if you are UK based. And she was asking about the Suri as well. So yeah, I don't know where this will be stocked in the UK, but again, I'm sure Lang Yarns Nordic can tell you where it'll be stored in the Nordic countries. The shade range wasn't as big for the Suri Alpaca, but I think for new yarn, I still thought it was quite a good range of colours. And obviously I have picked not a standard or like the most commonly chosen colour. I feel like most people would probably pick a beige. But I just thought that for the pattern that I am about to show you, I'm picking something in these kind of earthy tones made a lot of sense. So the pattern that I'm knitting for test knitting for Knit Flitter is called the Day Off Sweater, which I've spoken about. I think I mentioned a few times that was coming up on my test knit horizon. Just trying to well, there's strands everywhere. You know what it's like when you're knitting it. It's a sweater that you knit top down, obviously. This is just a nice I think maybe 2 different types of frequencies for the raglan increases. It's a 2-stitch raglan, which I think looks really nice. You can see the raglan stitch just here. Gives it a bit of a more casual look. You can see already here how much higher the neck is. So similar to the Day Off sweater, you do short rows to get the neck high. And personally, this is one of the best fitting necks I have ever worn. The short rows are just perfectly done. It probably looks a bit gaping here, or a bit funny. That's because I had to do a tabular Italian cast on, I think it's called, which I'd never tried before. But essentially it's the cast on technique that complements Italian bind off, which is my favourite. I've used it on this, I used it on the Fern sweater. I use it since I mastered it. I think I've used it on like 5 sweaters because it just gives such flexible ribbing. And of course it will do the same in the neckline. I had tried it once before in like a fingering weight yarn on 3.5mm needles, and I think if you had the technique really down it would have been fine, but at the time I didn't, and it was just, I ended up tightening it so much that I actually couldn't move the stitches. So this time I just relaxed and cast on really, really loosely, or not loosely, but just relaxed, because I think as I've become a better knitter, I have realised how hard it is for things to run, and that's something you kind of have to get used to kind of get over that fear that, you know, if you just turn your head, your whole project will just ever unravel itself. That is not the case. So anyway, I really enjoyed this cast on. So we'll have that kind of wide neckline. then it's going to have long sleeves that has goes all the way out here, and then it will have a thumb hole, which will be very comfy. And then at the bottom, when I get to the bottom of the body, I will there's short rows to create a considerably longer back. As the name suggests, it's called a day off sweater because it is in this slightly, for Nina especially, a slightly chunkier gauge and a much more relaxed fit. It will have a lot more positive ease on me than the office sweater does. And so obviously when you get sponsored yarn, that's always lovely. And I think it's so hard because you have to choose yarn often really fast when you get sponsored yarn. And I really had to think about what colour. I knew I was going to test knit the day off, so luckily I'd had time to think. And I really had to think about, obviously this sweater will have a very relaxed fit, right? It's not the type of sweater that you wear to the office to look really formal. So I knew I kind of wanted a colour that that sort of fitted that vibe. I imagine, you know, myself on walks in it in winter time, you know, as a sweater that you throw on to keep warm on the sofa, drinking tea, and that kind of relaxed vibe. And so I thought that this kind of beautiful dark green, it would suit, you know, still be fine with like joggers or pajama bottoms when you're at home. But if you were going for a walk, it would equally look nice with a nice pair of jeans and a pair of black boots or brown boots even. And I just thought that was much nicer than just picking a neutral colour. I've said this before, this is my second time knitting in dark green. Dark green is surprisingly hard to see. It's a lot, obviously I'm knitting in dark red. I find that much easier to actually see what you're doing than I do this kind of dark green. So I'm just going to pass on a warning for that. But so far I'm really happy with my choice. I think it can get a bit too neutral very quickly. So that was a lot of my thought process. Originally, the colour I thought I would go for was like, there's a dog playing in the garden that I just got distracted by, maybe a cat actually. Anyway, the first colour I wanted to pick was actually more, I was thinking like a light green, like a sort of green tea type of colour. But I don't remember if there wasn't the right colour, but then I think I just realised that dark green was probably more me. And I think complexion wise, dark green is actually one of the most flattering colours on me, so I should probably have knitted more in this. So yes, I'm test knitting this just now, and it has, I don't know if you can see, but that alpaca gives it almost like a brushed alpaca look through it, which is nice. So yeah, this has also, I should say, been quite fast as it is on big needles. I've had this cast on now for a week. I've cast this on for a week, and I've obviously started the other knit as well. And I think this is quite good progress. Like in an evening of concentrated knitting, I can easily do this many rows. So I also think once this pattern is released, it's going to be one of those that I would recommend to people who are slightly newer as a way to practice short rows, because you do have to do short rows and increases as you go along. It's very well described in the pattern, but I do think it's like a good thing to do these things on slightly chunkier needles. And that's all my current whips. I will just let me pop it back in my project bag. I'm knitting both of those projects on my Knit Pro Sings as an update on knitting needles, and at the moment I'm quite happy with them actually. I think one day I'd like to buy slightly more expensive needles to try, but so far the Knit Pro Sings have really really sort of like, they really fit what I was looking for in a new needle. As the final thing, I'm going to show you acquisitions. So you've seen most of the acquisitions, obviously the gifted yarn for the day off sweater, and then the Filcana Peruvian Highland wool that I bought for the other test knit. Simona very, very kindly from Knit, as you know, I buy a lot of yarn from her with my own money just in the past 2 months. I don't want to think about how much money I've spent in her shop. Simona and I are also friends. I saw yesterday the Knit and Pearl girl shared someone's post about gifted yarn, and kind of spoke about how much people can dislike seeing gifted products, and I guess it's because it can come across as quite privileged to just constantly have gifted yarn. And I just want to make it clear that, for example, buying from Simona, I have mentioned before, but I will mention every time, I just really like the yarns that she stock. She usually has the colours in stock that I really want. Like, her stock levels are usually very good. She ships really fast, and she's just a really nice person, and we often talk about yarns and projects together. She wasn't that keen. I had actually considered another colour first, and I showed it to her for the Vilvinger sweater. However, she was like, no, I don't think that's the right colour, and I really appreciate her also being honest. So yes, Simona knew it was my birthday, and she very kindly sent me through a birthday gift, which I am now going to show you, which has lived in a box since my birthday so that I could show it in the box. Just look at this, how cute is that? Which again, she obviously didn't have to do. She was just too nice. So the reason she had said she'd send something through is that she had offered me a sample ball essentially of Phil Kalana's Alva, which is a new yarn released by Phil Kalana, and it's with the new label as well, very fancy. And this is 100% alpaca that runs 175 meters by 25 grams. I just picked the color Marzipan. I have a project in mind that I would like to do later this year, which is like something I'd like to, basically needs 3 strands, and it's a lot of yarn, and I just kind of want to take my time to pick just a yarn that's right while I knit through more of my stash. And I actually thought that the Alva could be a brilliant choice, so she sent that through. I think Phil Kalana has developed this to be a replacement for silk mohair sim patterns, similar to the Ise Alpaca one that I used in this, and it is so soft and beautiful. It has a subtle halo, but often I find halos can really bloom after a wash as well, so to me this is soft enough to touch my neck without me even realizing that it's wool touching it. Again, my neck is the most sensitive area, so there's definitely yarn I can hold up and I'll be like, oh, that's a bit scratchy. This is not like that. Alva is still cheaper than silk mohair. I think it would work out cheaper than more expensive silk mohairs, but worth keeping in mind that because it runs 175 meters, you would probably still have to calculate 1 or 2 extra balls, maybe 3, depending on how much you need. So that's worth keeping in mind, that, you know, I think it could work out price wise maybe slightly cheaper than silk mohair, but not a lot. However, you would, I know some people are really sensitive to alpaca, but if you're not, this might be the one for you. The thing I love about Phil Kalana is that they always have massive colour charts, so there's loads of choice. Marzipan or 977 is obviously an Instagram favourite, probably brought on by Petite Knit because it's this perfect neutral. However, there's loads of other really nice colours. So she sent that through so I could squish it, see what I think of it, and yeah, I'm still kind of tempted to knit a project with Marzipan as one of the threads. The other thing, the 2 other things that she sent through were from Mod Living, or Mood Living, I don't know, maybe Mood, which is this Danish accessory brand I have eyed up many times and haven't yet bought anything from. So first off, she sent me the cube, which I can't remember the name of. What's it called? The Helsinki in the colour Whiskey. So it's like, I haven't even taken the stuffing out. But it's, you know, you could put some stitch markers, or probably stitch markers is best in here. Stitch markers, or maybe cables or something like that. And then obviously it's in this beautiful real leather as well. Really excited to actually put that with all my haberdashery. And then she also sent through the Malmo, again in the colour Whiskey, which is a little cute holder for a measuring tape. So she sent that through as just a thank you very much for being my knitting friend, and I thought that was incredibly kind, and I wanted to give a shout out to her shop once again. Buying yarn can be really difficult, and I think what I really like about her shop is obviously Filcolana is often recommended yarn for a lot of the Scandinavian patterns. She also stocks Sandnes now, which is obviously another one, and then I really like Lana Gatto. They have some lovely qualities. She also stocks some of Rob's qualities. I think she just brought in Wish. She just knitted Wish is like a blow yarn that is quite thick. So she just knitted a Louisiana sweater single strand, which would be a lovely beginner project first of all, and second of all I think Wish would be a lovely beginner's yarn as well. So if you kind of watching my channel and you sort of knew Drop Wish might be for you. Not that I have tried it myself, but when I've seen it, people usually really like Drop Wish. So yes, that is everything I had to show today. I'm feeling a tiny bit sleepy. I think it's like filming in the morning, and I'm kind of hoping that things will quiet down a little bit more. The summer's looking quite busy for me. I don't have much time off and the rest of my team does, so I feel like a lot of July will initially be spent filling in for people who are on holiday. Obviously we are opening up a bit more in the UK, and I also just feel like I've been more busy seeing people. Obviously yeah, as you can tell, we've moved on to the personal part now. I completely get it if this is not for you. As I mentioned before, in the middle of May we bought our first house, and wow, it's a lot of work. We're just about done with what we're calling phase one, which is sort of like buying initial furniture and sort of getting settled and all of these things, and we're basically through with that. So this morning, actually truly this morning, I had the final part of an IKEA delivery come through. I'm slowly but surely sorting my wardrobe, which was built a week ago, so there's still like final bits to sort of be finished. On Sunday our new sofas arrive, which we're really excited for. I really think it will pull together all of downstairs, but I just find that all of that takes time. Staying on top of the house takes time, cleaning and tidying it, and then we've also been really enjoying and taking full advantage of the easing of restrictions and having friends, very missed friends and family around, and it's so needed. I think I've mentioned it before, but at this after Christmas, when we were in the second like proper lockdown, and basically in the UK we had a bit of opening last summer, but then everything really got locked down from October onwards, and I think it was just so much that by just after Christmas I was just exhausted with it all, with being at home, not having a garden, and yeah, it was just getting too much for me. And I can tell I feel mentally so much better for everything opening up a little bit and being able to see people, and even though it obviously cuts down on your knitting time, it feels so good to feel my life returning a little bit. And yeah, I think I really needed time to just decompress a little bit. With work being really full on, I'm just also really tired when the day is over and on the weekends, and yeah, it's been good. I've been trying to soak up as much sun, just sitting outside, enjoying having the space to do so and the ability to do so. But yeah, it has left me a tiny bit. I think I was left a little bit frazzled with the move and all of these things, but it will, I feel like things are ready to settle down now. I'm just about to get my first vaccine, which is also really exciting. So yes, things are very good, and getting much better. As much as I feel bad for having not been that active on social media, I feel less bad knowing it's because I have taken time away to do things that also make me happy, because social media certainly does as well. It can just take a long time to do all, all the filming and all the editing and all of these things. So yeah, I will take a few photos today so that I don't stay completely, I think today is like 6 days ago since I last put up a post on Instagram, and that's not like me at all. So that's all I had to say, a little update on me. I'm hoping that next time, you know, with the sofas arriving, the second bedroom being sorted, the office being sorted, and sort of the end of this phase 1, that I could show you more of the house, because quite a few said you were interested. So I might put that in at the end of one of the future catch-ups. But today it is definitely not showroom ready. The whole of downstairs is full of all the boxes from my Pax wardrobe, which takes up a lot of room. Finally, before I completely sign off, I just want to mention that I always try to link channels that I really like down below, and if you've stuck around this long, you clearly like my content. And if you like my content, I have just found a new podcast called The Obsessive Maker from must be pronounced Jan. I'm really bad with Irish names. She lives in Australia but knits some beautiful things, and she loves colour, and she's just so cheerful. And I always find an Australian accent is the most calming thing to listen to. So I will make sure to link her down below, and you can go check her out if you feel the need to watch a bit more knitting podcasts. I am myself a bit behind on everyone's new uploads, but I'm hoping to sort of catch up over the weekend when things quiet down a little bit and it's just a lot of tidying and cleaning. Because what I will say is, if you do make a podcast, or if you do make a podcast, I would love to hear about your podcast. You know, you can leave a comment down below or message me on Instagram, because I found myself with my own videos that the YouTube algorithm is a funny thing. And obviously I think when I uploaded my first one, you know, I didn't have that many followers on Instagram, and there wasn't really much traffic coming through. And it took quite a few episodes before I started seeing traffic really increasing, and now I've hit over 1,000 subscribers, which is just unimaginable to me, that there's 1,000 people who willingly sit and listen to all of this crap that I speak. However, it's just to say that if you are a podcast maker, first of all, definitely go for it. It's great fun. But also, if it feels a bit like you put in all this time and effort to make a podcast and no one is seeing it, I completely get you. And I find that the viewers that usually stick around come from other podcasts that recommended me. So especially Laura from Penrose Knits is obviously so lovely and mentioned me, and anyone that's here from her, thank you so much. But just to say, please reach out, and I'm happy to have a look and give shout outs, you know, on my podcast as well, to sort of share the love for knitting podcasts. Right, now I should really stop and properly start my day. And I just want to say thank you so much for all your comments and messages, both here and on Instagram. They mean the absolute world to me, and I hope you have the loveliest of days. All right, see you later. Bye.